Hello and very warm welcome at Amish Shackle 5858. I am Amish Shackle. Following news have been reported by American, European, Asian, African, Australian news channels and the news agencies. So please let's go to the headlines.
Tonight we have breaking news as we come on the air in the West. We have learned tonight Israel taking action against Iran. We'll go to Marcus Moore in just a moment here. Also the new video of the horrific plane crash of Boeing 787 in the air, just seconds, hundreds killed. And the miracle in seat 11A, the lone survivor. The dramatic scene here in the U.S., the senator trying to ask about the immigration raids, handcuffed on the ground, hands behind his back, and the 9-year-old girl attacked by a shark. There's a new video now emerging of that horrific plane crash, the Boeing 787, crashing just about 30 seconds after takeoff, exploding into a ball of flames with 242 people on board, the tail sticking out of a building, at least 246 people killed, including several victims on the ground. And tonight here, what we've now learned about that sole survivor walking away from the crash. The breaking story here at home tonight, the heated confrontation over President Trump's immigration crackdown.
Senator Alex Padilla, I have questions for the Secretary.
California Senator Alex Padilla interrupting Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem. Authorities then wrestling him away, handcuffing him behind his back, face down on the floor. It comes after images of ICE agents chasing farm workers through the fields. We have also just learned tonight a fifth person now dead, the toll rising after flash floods in the U.S. sweeping drivers away in their cars. Also tonight, a man seen clinging to a tree, waiting to be rescued. In New York City tonight, the Harvey Weinstein retrial, the judge declaring a mistrial on the final charge after the jury foreman refuses to resume deliberations, saying he was afraid to go back into that jury room. What we've learned. Here in the U.S., a 9-year-old girl attacked by a shark while snorkeling in Florida. The shark biting off much of her hand, and now the extraordinary surgery. And tonight here, we remember a well-known actor, from Scarface to Ghostbusters to Clear and Present Danger. We look back. From ABC News World Headquarters in New York, this is World News Tonight. With
tragedy, but also a miracle against all odds.
A 40-year-old British Indian man is the only survivor to walk away from the Air India plane crash, which has killed more than 241 people.
But how did he defy death, and what caused this deadly crash?
Israel attacks Iran's nuclear site, kills the head of the Iranian army. Tel Aviv is braced for retaliatory strikes, which Tehran have said will be harsh and decisive.
Numbers spending review as economists warn of tax hikes to come if the economy shrinks any further.
Rioters attack police in the fourth night unrest in Northern Ireland. It comes despite police chiefs vowing to arrest and prosecute bigots and racists behind the violence.
And as experts warn supply will not keep up with demand for electric cars, we're asking, is Labour's green dream unachievable?
And meet Britain's newest dog breed. Muddy is officially granted recognition by the Kennel Club, making it the 225th breed in the UK.
Muddy?
Muddy.
And in sport this morning, Thomas Frank is unveiled as the new manager of Tottenham Hotspur. Emma Raducanu wins again. She's back to being British number one now for the first time in 2 years. And in a has an air while Patrick Reed hits an albatross.
Hello there, good morning. A dry and bright start for many, but further thunderstorms are on their way. So
I'm Lee Colso, and this is News Breakfast.
In Tel Aviv on what is now early morning in Israel. Trey.
Yeah, Trace, good evening. Overnight, Israel launched a series of strikes, according to the IDF, using dozens of fighter jets to target different positions across Iran, not only hitting the country's nuclear program and their ballistic missile supply, but also targeting individual leadership, including the head of the IRGC, Hossein Salami. This is the top military general in all of Iran, and according to Iranian state media, he is dead. There is currently a state of emergency declared across the entirety of Israel as this country braces for an expected Iranian response. I spoke tonight with an Israeli source who discussed what took place earlier in the evening. This This source said Israel was able to surprise Iran. Israel managed to hit several targets in the heart of Tehran and to eliminate multiple senior Iranian regime leaders simultaneously in different spots. Now, at this hour, there are reports of additional explosions taking place in the Iranian capital of Tehran, an indication that the Israelis are continuing those waves of strikes. But again, the question now is, how will the Iranians respond? Israel has a variety of air defense systems, from David's Sling to the Arrow 2 and 3 systems. They also have Patriot missile defense systems and a THAAD system supplied by the United States. But as we saw during an Iranian missile attack back in October that included hundreds of ballistic missiles, this is not a perfect system. And it's part of the reason that Israel's Home Front Command, the branch of the military responsible for communicating with civilians, has ordered everyone in this country to stay close to bomb shelters. This is not a question of if Iran will respond, but rather when and where. We do expect the targets to be extensive, but Israel has prepared for this for not only months, but years. This was something that the Israelis said would have to happen if Iran's nuclear program continued to advance toward a nuclear weapon. We know President Trump tried to pursue as many diplomatic opportunities as possible. His Middle East envoy, Steve Witkoff, going back and forth to the region in Oman and Europe 5 separate times, meeting with Iranian counterparts, trying to get together some sort of agreement. But the Israelis said that they were too close to a nuclear weapon, according to sources that we have talked to. And again, the decision was made tonight to strike Iranian nuclear facilities. The latest information that we have: the Israeli cabinet met tonight. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu addressed the nation about what is taking place, but we do not expect this to be over in a short period of time. This is likely going to take a matter of weeks before it is complete, and we do expect Iranian missiles to target Israeli cities in possibly the hours or days ahead. Trace.
Trey Yinks, live for us in Tel Aviv. Trey, we will get you as the news comes in. We appreciate it.
Hey, Sean Hannity here.
Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and more.
Airline disaster. A Boeing Dreamliner plunges to the ground moments after takeoff in India.
We are going to do a fair and thorough investigation.
What we're learning about the Canadian passenger killed and what the sole survivor is saying. Under surveillance, how sources say a suspected Indian government agent was spying on former federal NDP leader Jagmeet Singh. A Global News exclusive this Thursday night. Kicked out.
Sir,
Why this California senator was forcibly removed from a news conference. And specialized surgery.
It can really open up a lot of doors for more independence.
The procedure that could change this Canadian teenager's life. Good evening and thanks for joining us. The sole survivor of a devastating plane crash in India says it all happened within seconds. The fully loaded Boeing 787 Air India flight crashed shortly after takeoff. Its tail section left protruding from the building it hit. Emergency crews hoping to find survivors were left waiting with empty stretchers. The crash was catastrophic. The Boeing Dreamliner was flying from Ahmedabad in northwestern India to London Gatwick, but barely made it into the air. It crash landed less than a minute later on a medical college near the airport. That college is in a dense residential area. Dozens of people on the ground have been killed and injured, and 241 people on the plane, including a Canadian woman, have died. Our coverage begins with Redmond Shannon and a warning.
Tonight, two major breaking stories as we come on the air. The U.S. Senator handcuffed on camera and the air disaster killing hundreds. The stunning video tonight, moments after takeoff. Hundreds of feet up, an Air India flight loses altitude and crashes in a giant fireball. The jumbo jet crashed into a medical school hostel. Everyone aboard killed, except one man, bloody but able to walk away. You'll hear what he told his brother about the crash, what he did as the plane was going down as he sat in seat 11A. Plus, the news conference takedown, California Democratic Senator Alex Padilla shouting questions to DHS Secretary Kristi Noem, federal agents shoving him out, taking him down, and handcuffing him before later letting him go. Democrats demanding an investigation. Republicans saying Padilla needs to be censured.
We can't take farmers and take all their people and send them back because they don't have maybe what they're supposed to have.
It comes as President Trump says his immigration crackdown is hurting farmers, and he may make exceptions as protests spread from city to city over immigration raids. In Texas, the search for survivors, flash floods trapping drivers in San Antonio, cars swept away, 5 people dead, 2 more missing, rescuers pulling as many as they could to safety. We meet one woman desperate to find her husband. And the biggest great white ever recorded in the Atlantic, why scientists believe it may be headed to a popular U.S. vacation spot. Nightly News starts right now.
This is NBC Nightly News with Tom Yamas.
A jetliner filled with passengers and loaded with fuel crashes on takeoff and explodes in flames. How could anyone survive?
Someone did. From CBS News headquarters in New York, this is the CBS Evening News.
Good evening, I'm John Dickerson.
I'm Maurice Dubois.
We begin with the deadliest commercial jetliner crash in more than a decade. An Air India 787 crashed and exploded today, moments after taking off from Western India on a flight to London.
There were 230 passengers on board and a crew of 12. The airline says every one of them was killed. Everyone but the man in seat 11A, a window seat in an exit row. Incredibly, we're told, he survived.
He's in the hospital, and he's quoted as saying the plane split in 2 and he was thrown out before it exploded. There are apparently casualties on the ground as well. Part of the plane hit a building.
Among the many questions tonight, why did the Boeing Dreamliner crash, and how did that one passenger manage to walk away? Senior transportation correspondent Chris Van Cleve joins us now with the latest. Chris?
Investigators are going to be poring over dramatic and compelling, but also disturbing video we're about to show you, looking for any clues as to what went wrong during this plane's approximately 1-minute-long flight. Air India Flight 171 took off from Ahmedabad, a city of 8 million people, just before 2 in the afternoon. It would be a short and deadly flight. The Boeing 787 was headed for London's Gatwick Airport with 242 on board. The plane struggled to gain altitude and then sank towards the ground. Loaded with fuel, the 787 Dreamliner crashed into a neighborhood just beyond the airport. Air India CEO Campbell Wilson.
I would like to express our deep sorrow about this event. This is a difficult day for all of us at Air India.
According to the airline, everyone on board was killed except for one man who somehow escaped. His family is waiting for him in London, among them his cousin, AJ Balji.
The world is upset about this. Everyone is upset.
The plane crashed into a building housing medical students. Rescuers are hunting through the wreckage for survivors. So far, it's unknown how many on the ground were killed.
I'm totally shaken by the incident that has happened today.
Good evening. I'm Jeff Bennett.
And I'm Amna Nawaz. On the NewsHour tonight, hundreds are killed when a London-bound plane crashes shortly after takeoff in India.
As protests against immigration raids continue, California goes to court to challenge President Trump's deployment of the National Guard.
And we travel to Kenya to see how the Trump administration's cuts to foreign aid are hampering the fight against HIV.
USAID infrastructure that was working behind the scene, supporting the country, supporting our facilities, was and has been very crucial.
Welcome back to France 24, and the breaking story this morning: Israel carries out airstrikes on Iran in a new escalation in tensions between the two countries. The strikes on military and nuclear facilities have killed senior nuclear scientists and head of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard, as well as Chief of Staff of the Armed Forces Mohammed Bagheri. The United States says it was not involved in the Israeli operation. We'll be speaking to Philip Turl and James Andre from our International Affairs Desk. Israel early on Friday morning carried out strikes targeting nuclear and military installations in Iran. The sites of the strikes have not been identified, but black smoke was reported rising over Iran's main nuclear enrichment facility at Natanz. There are reports also of strikes on residential buildings in secure compounds housing military officers. An Iranian state media is reporting that the head of the paramilitary Islamic Revolutionary Guard, General Hossein Salami, was killed in one of the strikes. Also, 2 senior nuclear scientists terrorists, and also the head or the chief of staff of the Iranian Armed Forces, Mohammad Bagheri. Here is Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu.
Moments ago, Israel launched Operation Rising Lion, a targeted military operation to roll back the Iranian threat to Israel's very survival. This operation will continue for as many days as it takes to remove this threat. For decades, the tyrants of Tehran have brazenly, openly called for Israel's destruction. They've backed up their genocidal rhetoric with a program to develop nuclear weapons. In recent years, Iran has produced enough highly enriched uranium for 9 atom bombs. 9. In recent months, Iran has taken steps that it has never taken before, steps to weaponize this enriched uranium. And if not stopped, Iran could produce a nuclear weapon in a very short time. It could be a year, it could be within a few months, less than a year. This is a clear and present danger to Israel's very survival.
And for more,
is Asia Now.
It's 12 p.m. in Singapore and Hong Kong, 9:30 in New Delhi, and 11 o'clock in Jakarta. Samtani at this hour. Fears growing of another war in the Middle East after Israeli forces strike Iran, targeting nuclear and military sites. Iranian state media confirming the death of Revolutionary Guards Commander Hossein Salami. Israel bracing for retaliation. Oil prices and safe haven assets are climbing higher amid heightened tensions in the Middle East, while stock markets falling across the region and U.S. market futures pointing lower following the attack on Iran. Investigations underway into the cause of the Air India flight that crashed, killing all but one passenger on board. Local reports say one black box has been recovered. Prime Minister Narendra Modi arrives in Ahmedabad to take stock of the situation. And a court blocks Donald Trump's order to deploy the National Guard to Los Angeles to quell protests against immigration raids, with the judge calling the move illegal.
ABC.
A hit price for airstrikes, which have killed the Revolutionary Guards commander.
A targeted military operation to roll back the Iranian threat to Israel's very survival.
Also ahead, one passenger miraculously survives the crash of an Air India jet that killed 241 others on board. The ACT chief coroner rules an error of judgment was to blame for a Black Summer bushfire near Canberra. And wickets galore on day 2 leaves the World Test Championship between Australia and South Africa on a knife edge. Good afternoon, Casey Briggs with ABC News. Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, says Israel will face severe punishment for its attack on his country. A statement issued by the Iran confirms top military officials and scientists have been in strikes. Israel launched dozens of strikes on what it says are military and nuclear targets in Iran.
Hello, you're watching Sky News. It's 6 o'clock. Israel launches airstrikes on Iran against military and nuclear targets.
Roll Iranian threat to Israel's very survival.
Iran's supreme leader says Israel has brought a painful fate upon itself, vowing severe punishment for the attack. Hello, very good morning. Thanks for joining us here today. Israel has launched what it calls a preemptive strike on Iran's nuclear facilities and other military targets. Benjamin Netanyahu promised the mission, dubbed Operation Rising Lion, would continue for as many days as it takes, saying Iran's nuclear program posed a threat to Israel's very upon itself, and it will face what's including on the terror Iran kills the head of Iran's Revolutionary Guard, Major General Hossein Salami, according to Iranian state media. Well, Israel's military says 200 fighter jets completed strikes on more than 100 targets, including nuclear areas. Israel military claims Iran is advancing a secret program to build nuclear weapons and says Tehran has the key to make a nuclear bomb in days. Supreme says residential areas in Tehran have been hit, while the International Atomic Watchdog has confirmed the Natanz nuclear site was also targeted in the attacks.
Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. An Air India commercial flight crashed into a residential area of the northwestern Indian city of Ahmedabad minutes after taking off. The London-bound Boeing 787-8 plane had at least 242 people on board. AP is reporting there appeared to be no survivors from the crash. Boeing's been plagued by major aviation disasters in recent years, but it's the first such incident on the 787 aircraft. Fear is growing in the Middle East that Israel soon launch an attack on Iran. The U.S. has already begun pulling some non-essential personnel out of the region, including at the U.S. Embassy in Baghdad. Iran's defense ministers threatened to target U.S. bases, quote, if a conflict is imposed on us, unquote. Israel appears to be preparing to attack Iran, even though the U.S. and Iran are continuing to hold talks on Iran's nuclear program. Another round of negotiations are set for Sunday. Earlier today, the International Atomic Energy Agency declared Iran in breach of its non-proliferation obligations for the first time in almost 20 years. This all comes as Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu faces a growing political crisis at home. Earlier today, Netanyahu's government narrowly survived a vote to dissolve the Knesset. In related news, former CIA analyst Asif Rahman has been sentenced to 3 years in prison for leaking classified details last year about Israeli plans to strike Iran.
Africa News. The news.
26 years of uninterrupted democracy. This is what Nigeria celebrated on Thursday on Democracy Day. The atmosphere was not joyous in all parts of the country. In major cities like Lagos and Abuja, hundreds of
Nigerian citizens are happy. We are okay. We are doing. Government, now we are hungry. Our pots are empty. We cannot afford electricity. We cannot afford transportation. Everything is high.
Unlike some of its neighbors, Nigeria has been under continuous civilian rule since 1999 and is considered relatively free. The soaring cost of living crisis of the past 2 years widespread.
The reason why the democracy has not been interrupted is because the people are that crazy. So many times the government of the day keep on using police security to silence the demands of the people.
Government supporters today have made an occasion for celebration, but not so for Hassan Taiwo Soweto. He convened the hashtag #EndBadGovernance Governance movement to protest against inflation and cost of living.
There is no democracy in Nigeria. 26 years after democracy was supposedly restored, we can see that all of the freedoms that the country does with us, because there's hardly any regime that you look at over the past 26 years that you are not going to see different signs of failure of democratic institutions, whether you are talking about the legislature or you are talking about the judiciary.
While the protests this year remain peaceful, Nigeria enters its 27th year of democratic freedom with some challenges on the road ahead.
Leoja has been accused of raping a fellow British woman in Kenya. The incident last month near the controversial British Army training unit in Nanyuki, Kenya. The British Army, which has sole jurisdiction and does not involve the Kenyan police, is still conducting investigations. Kenyans have long complained about the soldiers' behavior and the atmosphere around their training camp. There was on cry over the 2012 death of 21-year-old Agnes Wanjiru, who was last seen alive leaving a bar with British troops near their training camp. Her body was later found in a septic tank. Wanjiru's family has campaigned for years for the suspected perpetrator, a serving British soldier at the time, to be charged. In April, UK's Defence Secretary John Healey met with Wanjiru's relatives in Kenya and vowed to help the family secure the justice they deserve. A UK-Kenya Defence Cooperation Agreement allows thousands of British soldiers to train in the East African country each year. About 200 UK troops are based there permanently to train Kenyan soldiers.
The deal, known as the China-Africa Economic Partnership for Development, would offer zero-tariff access to Chinese markets to all African countries if agreed by the two sides. The measure was announced as African foreign ministers gathered in central China to review the implementation of the outcomes of the China-Africa Summit held last year. President Xi Jinping announced that China will implement the policy of granting 53 African countries having diplomatic relations with China zero-tariff treatment for 100% tariff lines, provide more facilitation to least developed countries in Africa for the exports to China, and work with Africa to further implement the 10 partnership actions and building an all-weather China-Africa community with a shared future for the new era. Zero-tariff treatment was only available to 33 African countries previously. China is the continent's largest trading partner, with total trade reaching nearly $300 billion in 2024. Trent Alexander-Arnold was officially introduced by Real Madrid, saying he was fulfilling his dream to play for the Spanish powerhouse. The 26-year-old England back was the latest reinforcement on defense for Madrid after a season in which the backline struggled following injuries. Signing for a club like Real Madrid doesn't happen every day. It's a dream come true. I'm very happy and proud of myself for being here. I can't wait to show my game to Real Madrid fans. I am aware that playing for Real Madrid is a great responsibility, but I'm ready to do my best for the team and the fans. Alexander-Arnold won 9 titles with Liverpool, including 1 Champions League and 2 Premier Leagues.
Thank you very much for giving time to Amish Shackle 5858. I am Amish Shackle. Have a good life. Bye-bye.